Hi traders, welcome to a new educational video here on the channel. Today we're going to be talking about the VWAP indicator, that's the volume weighted average price, and we're going to talk specifically about some of the techniques that I use for it when I'm day trading futures on the lower time frames. There are different types of VWAPs you can use. There's like periodic VWAPs, for example, that will be like over a week. There's a monthly VWAP at the beginning of every month, a quarterly, yearly, etc. There's also what we call the anchored VWAP, which you can just hinge from any place on the chart, and then it'll give you the measurements from there. But I'm going to focus specifically on this video on the session VWAP and how I use it to day trade futures market. Specifically, I like to use it for the ES and the NQ markets on the CME. Okay, so before we start off, make sure to subscribe, hit that like button. This will help the channel keep getting recommended, get more views, and it'll help it keep growing and bringing you all this content, as well as you can check down in the video description links to the trading courses, where in my day trading course I go into more in-depth on how I use VWAP in my own day trading, etc. Okay, so first off, let's start off with a definition. So the volume weighted average price, or VWAP, it's a technical analysis indicator used as a trading benchmark that represents the average price an instrument has traded at based on both volume and price. Okay, and if we see like a VWAP here, you can see that it looks pretty much like a moving average, except when we talk about a moving average, all we're doing is plotting the candle closest over X period of bars, whereas the VWAP not only combines the candles open, close, etc., but it also combines the volume traded during the specific period that we are analyzing. VWAP is important because it provides traders with pricing insight into both the trend and the value of a security. The VWAP is calculated by totaling the dollars traded for every transaction, so price multiplied by volume, and then we divide that by the total shares that were traded. So we're basically measuring what volume of transactions are happening at each moment on a specific period of time. Like in this case, you can see here, this is extended trading hours. This is regular market hours. I'm looking in here. This example is the ES chart, a 3,000 tick intraday chart, and in purple here we have the VWAP. Okay, so with those definitions out of the way, I'm going to be talking about 4 different elements that I use in my day trading with VWAP. That is going to be as a trend following tool to help me with bias for the session. Also, there is the VWAP deviations, which are also going to help me sort of see ranges where price might be overextended. Then we're going to talk about dynamic support and resistance, and then also using VWAP as targets. Okay, so first, let's start talking about VWAP as a trend following tool. So as you can see, if I'm using a session volume weighted average price, right when market opens, this is the open at 6 p.m. for the extended hours. This is the open at 9:30 a.m. And you can see VWAP starts right where the first candle opens. And as new candlesticks start forming, it is going to be moving based on the activities of buyers and sellers. So when we have a day like this, for example, I'll be looking at the slope of the VWAP. So the more the more inclined the VWAP is, then obviously the more signs of a strong trend. And then you can see once VWAP flattens out, this is when we're going to be mostly in a sideways, choppy, consolidated action. And then you can see when we start sloping down is, obviously VWAP is a little bit lagging. So you can see like right here, we had already started our descent. And then as the trend accelerated, then the slope of VWAP starts descending, okay? But something as simple as just looking at how the VWAP is sloped, that is going to help us create a bias. And also we can say in general, okay, if we are above VWAP, then we are in a bullish trending environment. As soon as we have a close and then we start moving below it, then we start, having a more of a bearish bias for that session, okay? Then as far as deviations, let me bring up the first and second deviation on this VWAP. Okay, so here we have the VWAP, and then you can see these lines. We have the first and the second standard deviations to the upside and to the downside. And I don't always have this on, but if you're familiar with something like Keltner channels or Bollinger Bands, etc., the deviations are going to help us to see when price might be overextending. Like when we have days, like for example, this session, which you can see we have a big fat high volume node here. So it started trending towards the end of the day, but pretty much, between the 9:30 open and about 2 o'clock, we had, mostly a tight range right over here of about 12 points. Okay. So in this case, you can see how every time VWAP came to about the second deviation, we had some return to the mean. So when markets are mostly sideways, the first and especially the second deviation of VWAP is going to be useful in terms of looking for areas where price might be possibly going to be mean reverting back to the mean. And then when we have days of very strong trends, like we had on this session, it is common to see that once price really takes off trending, it's probably not going to touch back to the VWAP for the rest of the session. And a lot of times we're going to have this behavior where price is going to be trending between the first and the second deviations. Okay, so you're going to see in this case how once we started really trending, price pretty much maintained itself on an envelope between the first and the second deviations here. It's like this one here. You can see we had a strong trend down, and then for some time periods we had the price sort of channeling between the first and second deviations. Okay, so again, the deviations is not something that I always have on activated, but if I have a very strong trend day, then I like to check the deviations just to help guide me in terms of following the trend. Okay, now the next one, and this is probably like the one that I use the most, and is using VWAP as a dynamic support and resistance level. If we have, you can see it doesn't always work exactly, like this. Obviously, there's going to be areas where you're going to have, fake outs, for example, here. But overall, like for example, on this extended trading hours, you can see we had a very strong trend when we opened in the Asia session. And then right here, after Europe have opened, we had a trend down after London open and a very nice retest, and then we continued the trend up. Then the next regular trading hours we opened, started trending down, and then you can see on the first 3 touches back into VWAP, it acted as a resistance level. So in general, just like a support and resistance level, if you have a level here and you have this as resistance, if we break above it, then we expect the opposite reaction from the other side. And that's one thing I like to do then when I am trading with this, is once I see price has broken through, then I'm looking for a pullback into VWAP for a retest and then a continuation. Okay. And this goes on back to the first principle regarding the trend following as well. As a general rule, you want to say that if price is below VWAP, sellers are in control, so shorting is the more the highest conviction trade. Once we trade back above it, then our shift focuses into buyers are now more taking control, and that's when you are gonna can start looking into the possibility of looking to buy retests. Now when we have days where markets are mostly trading sideways, like the one that we talked about here, you can see that VWAP gets chopped through a lot. So then this days definitely, I'm not really trying to fade VWAP, like fade any retests or of VWAP, because I can see that these days are tending to be more of a mean reversion day back into the mean. You can see we're pretty much should focus on the edges of the high volume nodes here when we're having a trend non-trend day. But for days that we do have a nice trend forming, those retests of VWAP are going to be very good. For example, here we have a very nice example of a bullish retest. You can see market opened. We are trading pretty much sideways for a lot of the Asian session, Europe, and then into the open. We came down into here, right around the lows from this swing here on the overnight. And then you can see right here, we break back above VWAP, and then just a very nice retest and a strong continuation movement there. So VWAP can work very well as a dynamic support resistance level. You can see this day where we had the strong trend down on the open, and pretty much for the entire session, VWAP was acting as a resistance level. Okay, so if we would have had a big strong break here, then I would have been looking, for possibly a retest for a buy from the top side of this. Okay, and then the last element that I look for, which is related to all the other ones we talked about, is using VWAP as a target. Okay, so even though I spoke about, if we're below VWAP, we're should be tending more to look for shorts, and above to look for longs, just because we want to be trying to follow the trend and not go against the underlying forces or the traders that have the upper hand. VWAP makes for excellent targets if you're coming into it. So for example, like here, we have this move up. Let's say you got short right around here. Immediately, I would obviously be looking at the developing volume profile for this session and any high time frame important levels I have marked. But VWAP is an excellent area to look to take profits or to close out your trade entirely if you're, just looking for a short-term trades. Like here, for example, we have this big push down. If you manage to then get long up here, VWAP should definitely be one of your first focuses as far as targets or areas that you want to be looking to at least secure some profits. Like right here, we have opened, we've been riding VWAP as support. Day is looking, bullish on this breakout. If let's say you got short somewhere around here, then definitely VWAP, since we know that we've been using it as support since the early session and market is still, clearly trending to the upside. Obviously, we're going to have pullbacks, but if you manage to, let's say you get short on this move back, definitely VWAP is one of the first logical areas that you want to be looking to take profits in. Okay, and that's pretty much a summary of the 5 principles that I use with VWAP when it comes to my day trading. Again, this is a tool of confluence that I use along with order flow, volume profiles, etc. And I hope this video has been helpful. Make sure to subscribe and like, and I'll see you all in the next one.